The moon hung like a pale, watchful eye above the forest, silvering the rooftops of the pack house and spilling shadows across the worn dirt paths. Beneath that light, she had always felt small, an afterthought, a shadow at the edge of others' glory. Ilara was born Omega, the lowest rank, and the pack never let her forget it. Bruises were her ornaments, whispered insults her lullabies. Every corner of her childhood carried echoes of laughter at her expense. Even her wolf, quiet Tim, adroitly stirred in her chest as though ashamed of belonging to her. Yet on the coldest nights, when she lay curled on the thin straw mattress of her attic room, she remembered the old crone's words. The weakest wolf shall one day wear the crown of the moon. The one who bows today will make others bow tomorrow. It had sounded like madness, the ravings of a dying seer. Still, sometimes, when the scars burned and her heart ached, Ilara clung to those words like a secret flame. She dreamed of freedom, of being seen, of mattering. But dawn always broke with cruel laughter and another day of servitude. She lowered her head, hid her trembling hands, and pretended she did not feel the strange, deep pull of something waiting inside her, something both dangerous and beautiful. The prophecy lingered, silent as the stars, patient as destiny. And though no one in the pack believed the Omega could ever be more than a servant, the moon was not done with her yet. Morning came with the smell of damp stone and bread baking somewhere below. Ilara padded barefoot down the corridor of the pack house, her basket clutched to her chest. Her steps were careful, trained to be silent, yet nothing she did escaped the mocking whispers. Look at her, skulking like a thief, probably hoping someone will notice her for once. Pathetic. The words floated from the cluster of young she. Wolves by the stairs. Ilara's cheeks burned, but she kept her gaze down. If she met their eyes, they would corner her, maybe shove her against the wall again. Better to move like a ghost. Still, something inside her rebelled. It was faint, a spark pressing at her ribs. Her wolf stirred, restless. For years it had been weak, quiet, almost non-existent. But lately, she felt it pacing, whispering. At the storeroom door she paused, steadying her breath. The scent of pine and moss drifted from the open windows. Autumn had come sharp and bright. For a heartbeat, she let herself look outside, past the yard to where the forest shimmered. She imagined running there, far from the pack house, her wolf at last free to breathe. Move, Omega. A rough shoulder slammed into hers, knocking the basket from her hands. Apples rolled across the stones, red against gray. Laughter followed. Ilara crouched, gathering them quickly, murmuring apologies, though her throat ached with unshed words. Her hands shook as she tucked the last apple back into place. She wanted to shout, to bare teeth and show them she wasn't nothing, but her wolf remained just out of reach, trembling instead of roaring. Still, as she rose, clutching the basket again, her eyes flicked upward. For an instant, she thought she felt the moon watching her even in daylight. And the spark inside her chest whispered a promise she dared not believe. Not forever. Not always the forgotten one. The night of the moon feast should have been beautiful. Lanterns swayed in the courtyard, their flames mirrored in silver goblets and polished armor. Music drifted through the crisp autumn air, carrying laughter and the rustle of silk gowns. Wolves from every rank gathered beneath the towering pines to honor the goddess who bound them all. For Ilara, it was another night of servitude. She balanced a tray of steaming platters, weaving between tables where warriors boasted of victories and high. Anking she, wolves sparkled with jewels. Every smile seemed sharper, every laugh a reminder that she did not belong. Careful, Omega, one warrior drawled as she passed. His foot shot out, catching her ankle. She stumbled, clutching the tray to her chest. Meat slid but did not fall. The crowd chuckled anyway. She forced a steady breath and kept walking. Her heart thudded painfully, but she could not falter. Not here, not before the entire pack. As the night deepened, the pranks grew crueler. A glass tipped near her arm, soaking her sleeve. A shove from behind made her knees buckle. Still, she endured, her jaw tight, eyes fixed on the ground. Then it happened. Someone, she never saw whose, slipped a foot beneath her just as she stepped into the circle where the alpha's seat overlooked the feast. The tray flew from her hands, dishes crashing, sauce and roasted meat splattering across the polished stones. Gasps and laughter erupted. Ilara froze, her breath caught in her throat, shame burning hotter than fire. She knelt quickly, hands scrambling to gather the shards, ignoring how they sliced her palms. Pathetic. The word hissed through the crowd, carried on mocking laughter. Above the noise, she felt eyes on her. A weight heavier than ridicule. She dared to lift her gaze, just once. At the high seat, the Alpha's chair stood empty, but beside it, Beta Rowan sneered, lips curved in cruel satisfaction. "Clean it up, Omega," he barked, loud enough for all to hear. Her hands shook as she obeyed, crimson drops mingling with spilled wine. No one offered help. No one spoke for her. The feast continued as though she were less than dirt beneath their boots. And yet, as she knelt in the torchlight, humiliated, the moon broke free of the clouds overhead. Its pale glow touched her skin, and for a fleeting heartbeat, her hidden wolf pressed forward, restless. Her humiliation was complete. But somewhere deep inside, something had awakened, and it was waiting. The feast dragged on long after the sting of humiliation had settled into Alara's bones. Her hands still bore thin cuts from the broken dishes, stinging each time she flexed her fingers. She kept to the shadows at the edge of the courtyard, praying no one would notice her. But when the heavy doors of the hall opened and the music softened into silence, every head turned. He had returned. The new Alpha strode into the torchlight, his presence as commanding as thunder. Tall, broad, shouldered, his hair dark as midnight and eyes like molten gold that caught every flicker of flame. His name was Kale, the son of the former Alpha, trained beyond the borders and hardened by battles no one here could imagine. The pack rose in unison, their reverence spilling into the night. Only Alara remained small, her knees trembling as if her body recognized something before her mind did. For one fleeting moment his gaze swept across the crowd and landed on her. Her breath stopped. The noise of the feast dulled into silence in her ears. His golden eyes held hers with startling intensity, and in that heartbeat something primal flared between them. Her wolf stirred violently, pressing against her chest as if clawing to be seen. Then his expression hardened. The Alpha blinked once, his jaw tightening, and his gaze slid past her as if she were nothing. His voice carried across the courtyard, deep and commanding. "Sit, feast. Tonight we honor the moon." The pack obeyed instantly, cheering his words. Alara forced herself to breathe again, heat rushing to her face. That look, whatever it had been, was gone. She was once again invisible, but her wolf had felt it, the pull, the recognition, the undeniable spark that made her blood sing. No, it can't be, she thought desperately. Mates were blessings from the moon. The Alpha could never belong to an Omega like her. Still, as she returned to her duties, avoiding the sharp eyes of the higher ranks, she felt the echo of his gaze linger like fire on her skin. And though he had dismissed her with cold indifference, a truth she could not yet speak had already taken root. The Alpha had noticed her, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night ended with the roar of laughter and clinking of goblets, but Alara slipped away before the last song faded. Her palms still throbbed with shallow cuts, and her heart ached from the Alpha's cold dismissal. She climbed the narrow stairs to her tiny attic room, a place no one else bothered to enter. The slanted roof creaked and moonlight poured through the single cracked window, painting silver across the floorboards. It should have been comforting. Tonight, it felt like judgment. Alara sank onto her thin mattress, her body trembling with exhaustion. She pulled back her sleeve to wash her wounds, but when her skin caught the moonlight, she froze. There it was again, faint but undeniable, an intricate symbol glowing just beneath the surface of her wrist. Not a scar, not a wound, a mark she had hidden her entire life. Its light pulsed softly, as though responding to her racing heartbeat. No, she whispered, cradling her arm, not again. She remembered being a child, clutching the same wrist when the mark first appeared, panicked and crying. She'd been careful ever since, strapping it in cloth, tucking her sleeves down, never letting anyone glimpse it. If the others saw, they would call her cursed or worse, but tonight the glow was stronger, brighter than it had ever been. It pulsed in rhythm with the memory of golden eyes that had locked with hers across the feast, as if his presence had awakened something dormant in her blood. Her wolf shifted uneasily inside her, no longer silent. A whisper brushed the edges of her thoughts, not quite words but urgent, insistent. He is the reason. Elara clutched her arm tighter, heart hammering. If the alpha was her mate, and if this mark tied her to something greater than she understood, then her secret was more dangerous than ever. A floorboard creaked in the corridor outside. Voices drifted closer, cruel and mocking. She quickly tugged down her sleeve, hiding the glow before the door rattled, and two wolves passed by, laughing about the Omega's clumsy disaster at the feast. They didn't know. No one did. As the sound faded, Elara pressed her wrist to her chest, the mark still pulsing faintly against her skin. She had kept this secret her whole life, but the moon had chosen to wake it now, and there would be no hiding it forever. The forest had always been Elara's refuge. By day, it shielded her from cruel whispers. By night, the shadows felt like friends that did not judge her. But that morning, the woods were restless. Crows scattered from the trees, and the air carried the sharp tang of blood. She was on her way back from gathering herbs when she heard it, a cry, high and frightened, followed by snarls. A pup. Her heart lurched. Without thinking, Elara dropped her basket and ran. Branches whipped her arms, roots clawed at her feet, but the cries drew her forward. In a small clearing, she found him, a boy no older than 7, cornered against a tree. 3 rogues circled him, their eyes red with hunger, their fangs dripping. Elara's blood went cold. She should have run. Omegas didn't fight. They were prey, not protectors. But the pup's terrified eyes met hers, and something inside her snapped. No, she whispered, stepping between him and the rogues. Her wolf surged, fiercer than ever before. Power tingled in her veins, heating her blood until her skin burned. She growled, a sound she hadn't known she was capable of, and spread her arms protectively. One rogue lunged, instinct took over. Elara caught the beast's shoulder mid-strike, shoving it back with strength that should not have been hers. Shock widened its eyes before it crashed into the underbrush. The other 2 hesitated, snarling. Then another scent hit the clearing. Sharp, commanding, undeniable. The alpha. Kale burst from the trees in his wolf form, massive and dark, eyes blazing gold. In a heartbeat he tore into one rogue, his fangs snapping bone. The others fled, whimpering into the night. The pup ran to him, clutching his fur. Kale shifted back, tall and terrifying, blood streaking his chest, but his gaze wasn't on the rogues, it was on her. Elara stood trembling, her palms scraped and her sleeve torn where she had shoved the rogue. She waited for scorn, for the cold dismissal she'd always known. Instead, Kale's brows furrowed. For just a moment, something softer flickered in his eyes. Admiration, confusion, recognition, but it vanished as quickly as it came. His jaw hardened. What were you thinking, Omega? His voice was low, dangerous. You could have been killed. Elara lowered her gaze, hiding the tremor in her hands. She had no answer, only the pounding truth echoing in her chest. She had fought back, and the alpha had seen it. The pack house courtyard buzzed with gossip after the rogue attack. Whispers spread quickly. The Omega had stood against death. Some scoffed, others sneered, but the story carried an uneasy weight. Elara tried to keep her head down, scrubbing the blood from her sleeve in the wash basin. Her hands still trembled from the fight. She replayed it in her mind. The moment her wolf had surged, the look in the alpha's eyes. A shadow fell across her. She froze. Kale, his scent hit her first. Sharp pine, smoke, and something darker that made her pulse quicken. It wrapped around her, intoxicating and impossible to ignore. Her wolf howled inside her, pressing forward with desperate need. You're reckless. His voice was low, firm. Do you realize what could have happened? You're an Omega. You don't fight rogues. I couldn't leave the pup. Elara whispered. Her throat felt raw, but her eyes, despite everything, lifted to his. For a heartbeat, silence stretched between them. His gaze locked on hers, golden and unyielding. She felt it then, the unmistakable tug of the bond. Her chest ached, every nerve sparking. Her wolf clawed against her ribs, crying out for him. Kale inhaled sharply, his jaw tight. He stepped closer, as if pulled by the same invisible thread. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, the rhythm of his breath. The world narrowed until it was only him, but just as quickly he tore his gaze away. His fists clenched at his sides and his voice came cold, almost brutal. Whatever you felt, forget it. You're not my equal. You'll never be. The words struck like a blade. Illyra's lips parted, but no sound came. She lowered her gaze, hiding the sting of rejection. Yet deep within, her wolf refused to cower. Cale turned sharply and strode away, leaving only the ghost of his scent in the air, sharp, intoxicating, unbearable. Illyra pressed a trembling hand to her chest, her heart pounding against her palm. His words had cut deep, but the bond still pulsed, undeniable. He could deny her with his mouth, but his eyes had already betrayed him. The moon hung heavy that night, silver light spilling over the forest paths as Illyra walked alone. She couldn't shake Cale's voice, cold and dismissive, even though her wolf still hummed with the bond's call. Her steps carried her to the edge of the woods, where an old cottage leaned against twisted oaks. The healer, Mira, lived there, one of the few pack members who never sneered at Illyra. Mira welcomed her in, pressing a steaming cup of herbs into her hands. "You feel it now, don't you?" the elder murmured, eyes sharp despite her age. Illyra froze. Feel what? The pull, the thread of the bond. Mira's lips curved, but it was not unkind. No Omega should sense an Alpha's bond, unless... Her heart thudded. "Unless what?" Mira leaned closer, voice low. "Unless you were never meant to be an Omega." The words cracked something inside her. She shook her head, laughing bitterly. "You've seen the way they treat me. I'm the lowest of the low. I am an Omega." The elder's gaze did not waver. "Child, blood can be disguised, but truth cannot be erased. I knew your mother. She carried a strength no one dared to speak of. The pack feared her for reasons they hid well." Illyra's breath caught. She had never known her mother beyond faint fragment, sighs like hers, a lullaby she barely remembered. "What do you mean feared her?" "Because she was born of the first line. Royal blood, blood that carried both blessing and curse." Illyra's hands shook around the cup. Royal blood. She wanted to deny it, but something deep within stirred, restless, wild. Mira reached out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. The Alpha senses it, though he refuses to admit it. That's why the bond burns so hot. You are not just an Omega, Illyra. You are something far more dangerous. A log cracked in the hearth, the sound sharp as thunder. Illyra's chest tightened. She didn't want to believe it. But hadn't her wolf already shown its strength against the rogues, and hadn't Cale's eyes betrayed recognition before his words cut her down? Outside, a wolf howled. Long, mournful warning. Illyra shivered, clutching the cup tighter. If Mira was right, her life was no longer just about survival. It was about secrets buried so deep they could tear the pack apart. And Cale might be the only one with the power to uncover them. The training grounds roared with life the next morning. Warriors sparred in the dirt, their snarls carrying into the crisp autumn air. Illyra lingered at the edges as she often did, arms folded tight against her chest. She only came to deliver herbs to the medic, but her presence drew whispers as usual. "Look at her." A she-wolf muttered to her friend, smirking, always hovering like she belongs here. Illyra ignored it, jaw clenched. She turned to leave, only to stop when a familiar voice called her name. Dorian, a young warrior with easy charm, jogged over. He wasn't cruel like the others. His smiles never carried poison. "You shouldn't look so tense," he said lightly. "I bet beneath all that frown, you could actually smile." Illyra blinked, startled by his boldness. "Why would you care?" "Because," Dorian grinned, "I like proving people wrong." He plucked a wildflower from the ground, twirling it between his fingers before offering it to her. "Here, a smile would suit you better than their scorn." Heat crept into her cheeks, confusion tangled with the tiniest spark of warmth. No one had ever offered her something so simple, so kind, but before she could reply, a low growl cut through the air. The training ground stilled. Cale stood across the circle, his eyes locked on the flower in Dorian's hand. His shoulders were rigid, his wolf rising close to the surface. Warriors backed away, sensing the storm about to break. Dorian swallowed hard but didn't lower his hand. "Alpha, step away." Cale's voice was steel, his growl vibrating through the earth. Now, Alara's heart pounded, the air thick with tension. "It's nothing," she whispered quickly, her voice trembling. He was only. Cale's gaze snapped to her, and the burn in his eyes silenced her, not anger at her, but something far more dangerous, possession. Dorian hesitated a moment too long, and Cale was suddenly there, grip iron around the younger wolf's collar. "If you ever touch what's mine again," Cale snarled, fangs bared, "you'll regret it." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mine. Alara's stomach flipped, fear and longing tangling in her chest. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Cale shoved Dorian back, the warrior stumbling away. Then his gaze returned to her, burning, conflicted, wild. For a heartbeat, it felt like the world had stilled, holding its breath. Then Cale turned sharply, stalking away before the truth could slip further from his control. But the word still echoed in every ear. Mine. The moon hung heavy that night, full and swollen, draping silver light across the packhouse courtyard. The whispers still lingered from earlier, Cale's possessive outburst echoing in every corner of the pack like wildfire. Alara hadn't slept. She kept replaying the word mine until her chest ached with confusion and fear. Did he mean it, or was it only instinct? Something he would deny come morning. She slipped through the corridors quietly, carrying a basket of clean linens, hoping to escape the stairs. But shadows trailed her, whispers followed, and at the center of them all was one man's smirk, the beta, Calder. He watched her with eyes too sharp, too knowing. For weeks, he had studied her every movement, every trembling moment. Now with Cale's possessive claim stirring unrest, Calder saw his chance. Little Omega. He drawled as she passed. "The Alpha seems unusually interested in you. Care to explain?" Alara froze, clutching the basket. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie." Calder's smile was cruel. "I've seen the mark you hide, that glow. It isn't natural. The pack deserves to know what you are." Her heart stuttered. The mark. How she'd been so careful. Before she could answer, strong hands grabbed her arms. Two warriors loyal to Calder dragged her into the courtyard, ignoring her protests. Her basket spilled, linens scattering like torn feathers. The courtyard filled quickly. Wolves emerged from rooms drawn by the commotion. Torches flickered, shadows stretching high. The full moon glared down, unblinking. Calder shoved her forward, voice booming. "Tonight, before the eyes of the goddess, I expose a traitor among us. This Omega is no meek servant. She hides something dangerous, something cursed." Gasps rang out. Alara's throat tightened. "That's not true. Then show them," Calder barked. He ripped at her sleeve, fabric tearing to reveal the faint, glowing mark etched across her skin. The crowd recoiled as if burned. "She carries power no Omega should possess." Calder spat. "If she's not a traitor, then what is she? A curse sent to bring ruin." Alara's chest heaved, tears blurring her vision as dozens of accusing eyes burned into her. And then, through the chaos, another presence surged forward. Powerful, furious, Cale. His growl silenced the pack like thunder splitting the sky. His gaze landed on Alara's exposed mark, his jaw hardening, not in disgust. No, his eyes blazed with something else. Recognition. Enough. He roared, his wolf pushing at the surface. "She is not cursed." But Calder only sneered, circling closer. "Then prove it, Alpha. Prove she isn't the death of us all." The night trembled, balanced on the edge of blood. The courtyard erupted into chaos. Wolves shouted, some jeering for Alara's exile, others stunned into silence. The glowing mark on her skin pulsed brighter beneath the full moon, defying her trembling attempts to cover it. Cale stepped between her and the crowd, his voice a thunderclap. Not another word against her, but Calder sneered, lifting his chin. "You defend her as if she is yours, yet all of us see the truth. Her power is unnatural, dangerous. If you truly believe she is no curse, then fight me, let the goddess decide." Gasps rippled through the pack. A beta challenging his alpha. It was near treason. Cale's wolf surged close to the surface, his eyes flashing gold. "You want a fight, Calder." His voice was low, deadly. "Then you'll have it." The warriors formed a circle, torches blazing. Alara stood at its edge, heart hammering against her ribs. She wanted to scream, to beg them to stop, but the voices drowned her. The two wolves lunged. Cale struck first, his claws raking across Calder's chest. Calder snarled, snapping back with vicious force, teeth flashing. The ground shook with their clash, dust rising as muscle and fang tore through the night. Alera's hands trembled at her sides. She could feel something pulling inside her, the mark thrumming like a second heartbeat. Each time Cale faltered, pain seared through her veins as if she shared his wounds. Calder slammed Cale to the ground, fangs at his throat. The pack roared in approval, tension thick with bloodlust. No, the cry ripped from Alera before she could stop it. She stumbled forward, her palm glowing with the same light as the mark. Instinct, not thought, guided her as she pressed it against Cale's wound. A golden surge exploded from her hand, weaving into his torn flesh. The gash closed before their eyes, Cale's breath returning in a shudder. The pack gasped, silence crashing over them. Cale rose to his feet, power blazing through him, renewed by her touch. His gaze snapped to Calder, his voice savage. "She is no curse, she is my strength." With a final brutal strike, Cale hurled Calder to the dirt. The beta's body fell limp, defeated. Torches flickered wildly, shadows bowing low, and then Cale turned, not to the pack, but to her. His hand cupped her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear. "You were never meant to be their Omega," he said, his voice rough, breaking. "You were meant to be my queen." The pack fell to their knees, one by one, heads bowed. The prophecy had spoken. The weakest had risen, crowned not in ceremony, but in fire and blood. The night after the battle was hushed, as though the entire forest held its breath. The air still carried the scent of smoke and blood, yet beneath it pulsed something new, hope. Alera stood at the balcony of the Alpha's chambers, gazing out across the packlands. The moonlight touched her hair, making it shimmer like spun silver. For the first time in her life, no one whispered her name with scorn. They whispered it with reverence. Behind her, footsteps approached. She didn't need to turn to know it was Cale. His presence always filled the air, a tether pulling tight around her heart. "You should rest," he murmured, his voice rough from the battle. She shook her head softly. "I can't, not yet. Everything feels unreal. Yesterday I was nothing. Tonight they bowed." Her voice cracked with disbelief. "It doesn't feel like me." Cale moved closer, his warmth steady at her back. "It was always you, they just couldn't see it, but I did." She turned at that, her eyes wide. "Did you? Even when you called me unworthy, when you let them laugh at me?" His jaw tightened, guilt shadowing his features. "I saw you, I felt you, that pull. My wolf knew before I let myself believe it. I was a coward, Alera, afraid of what it would mean to claim someone they thought so low, but tonight." He reached out, brushing his knuckles along her cheek. "Tonight I nearly lost you, and I will never make that mistake again." Tears slipped down her face, hot and silent. She pressed her palm to his chest, where his heart thundered. "Cale." He bent his head, lips brushing her forehead. "Say it," he whispered against her skin. "Say you'll stay. Say you'll be mine." Her breath hitched, the word trembling free. "Yes." In one swift motion, his mouth claimed hers, fierce and aching with all the words they had never spoken. The bond snapped into place, blazing through her veins like fire, sealing them as one. When they parted, the pack below howled to the moon, a chorus of acceptance that shook the night. Cale drew her close, his voice steady, unyielding. "No longer Omega, no longer hidden. You are my queen, Alera, and together we will change this pack forever." The prophecy had been fulfilled. The weakest wolf had risen, crowned by love and fate, and under the eternal gaze of the moon, she was his always.